When did Next Star buy CW?
Like 2022, I think.
Yeah, how much stake-wise?
It was like 75%, I think.
75% is correct. And now they've weeded out every scripted television show on the network except for All American, the parent show to this one, which has a deal with Netflix. So it's still going to have another
So that's the
season.
reason why it was saved.
That's the reason it was somewhat saved. I don't see that show going on forever. This one, however, was not without its controversy whether or not it would even come back. They had to bump basically the full regular cast down to reoccurring characters, besides the main three or so. And then it took down the budget from whatever it was beforehand to like $500,000 to $750,000 per episode, which compared to, let's say, Acolyte, which has a $23 million budget per episode, is pretty crazy.
Well, with the Waystar agreement, it was that the
Waystar, you keep saying Waystar.
Nextstar agreement. The person that owned Nextstar came out and said that scripted shows for the CW were not going to be their main concerns.
Oh,
right?
it's done. I think it's over. That period of CW, yeah.
So what's left? What are they going to bring in and replace?
I think it's just all reality, right? Just non-scripted shows, or playing other. It's just that yeah, that's not how the conversations begin geared, but yeah. But let's talk about All American, the parent series, still on Netflix. I think it's gone 6 or 7 series. It started in October of 2018. It was loosely inspired by Spencer Paysinger. He was a New York Giant who won the Super Bowl, a linebacker. Then he left the league somewhere in the mid 2010s.
So it's a little bit like Swagger with Kevin Durant, how it was kind of based on his life.
Except, I don't think Spencer Paysinger was ever that big of a football player. I think he was in fact, I think that's why the shows don't overly concentrate on the sports. Yes, they're sports dramas, but I think that this one, particularly Homecoming, right? Isn't this episode, season 3, episode 1, mostly about a love triangle?
Actually, no, it does focus most on the sport.
Oh, that's cool.
Really, because so Damon, who is the boyfriend of the main character, Simone, he's in baseball, and
he's in baseball. This is Bringston University, and they're all playing.
The strange thing that the show does is that it starts with a 15-month time jump in the future.
Yeah,
and
that
for
reminds
a
me
minute.
of Dear White People. At the beginning of that 4th season, I think that we reviewed, it did a flash forward, and it had them in the far future where I think there was an apocalypse, and then they started telling stories from the past.
It's Simone's junior year, but it's only for a minute because then we flash right back to 15 months prior, which I guess is the day after the big cliffhanger of season 2 happened, where Simone got together with Damon, and at least from what I gauged from the previously, I think that's who people wanted to get together.
Ironically,
right?
I mean, it's CW love triangles. There are Vampire Diaries, Buffy, Dawson's Creek, Gossip Girl. They've all had them. There've even been quadrangles, which I learned about while doing research on this. Yes, Gossip Girl and Vampire Diaries both had quadrangles at one point, where it's a girl who's choosing between 3 guys as opposed to 2 guys.
I have never heard of that.
Wasn't one of the main characters in Vampire Diaries also called Damon, though?
Yes.
Okay.
That was Ian
And he was
Somerhalder.
also the fan favorite, right? Because he was the guy from Lost.
I think he's who that might
and
be.
He was
who
also supposed to be originally a villain in that series
in the first season. Yeah.
And this guy here, from what I'm reading, also played the villain, sort of like Spike from Buffy as well. The bad guy who's getting the girl, right?
Really? So Damon
is the good guy who they kind of wanted her to end up with overall, but then I feel like they got canceled here, and so people were speculating that if it had gone 4 or 5 seasons, maybe that would have been her friend that ended up with her.
Yeah.
The Ross of the group.
Ross and Rachel. We don't know if they're going to actually stick together, because at the very end of this episode, he gets a promotion. It seems like he possibly could be gone from the show.
I'm going to tell you something that everybody already knows, though.
He's not.
When I was talking about when I was talking about the budget cuts, right?
Yeah.
And how most of the staff, the regulars, got cut down to recurring.
Right.
He was one of those. The only person to get promoted was the other guy. What's his face? Logan? What's his name?
Lando,
right? Because it's between Lando and Damon.
Well, Lando isn't even in this episode. They only mention him once at the very beginning of it.
Okay, so at the beginning when I was going off about Vampire Diaries and Damon playing the bad guy, Damon's not the bad guy here. He's the good guy. Lando is the bad guy.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
It was such a weird name too, because obviously Lando Calrissian, that's who I connected it with right away. But yeah, no, we start off with a championship week. Damon, he's actually, yeah, there's a championship baseball game going on. JR, I guess, was a member of the team, and I think Damon's brother, who had a career-ending injury, but he shows up to the game. Everyone's watching it. It seems like the Bringston Lions are going to lose. It's 10-4, and then we actually got kind of an interesting 10-minute montage of them coming back and ended up winning the game 11-10. So they ended up winning the championship. And I think that's what leads into the intro. But this actually.
Well, okay, so I saw clips of it. I didn't watch the full episode. But the thing about the baseball game that I noticed, this is college baseball. It's not high school baseball.
Yes.
It's not elementary baseball or T-ball or anything like that. Besides the main character, everybody looked like they weren't athletes. Like, it looked like you got a bunch of action. I was pretty sure that I saw some like really overweight dude who was like trying to slide into third or something. And it didn't seem like that was like the best casting for a sports team.
Well, talking about casting, the most noticeable thing for me is that Damon is supposed to be playing. He even says later on in the episode that he's about to be a sophomore. The actual actor is 30 years old. Even the coach.
Is this a community college? Because maybe he just went back to school later on.
I mean, he looks 30 years old, but I'm not really sure. Well, actually,
you just got done watching Sex Education, and everyone there is 45.
It started out. It looked though that Sex Education started out with the characters actually looking their age. Here, though, they're trying to be more prestigious college because they're moving money out of athletics for more academic endeavors.
That's strange. That's not usually how it works. It usually shuffles the other way.
That's why it reminded me so much of Grownish, because I remember that the episode we did there dealt with them getting a donation, and they were wondering if they were going to accept it or if they were going to decline it because of who the donation was coming from.
Also a spinoff that then followed the daughter, right?
Yes.
As she went to college. It also reminds me of Bel Air, where also a spinoff, and then On My Block, Swagger, like you already pointed out, where the students, or a lot of the students, are attending an affluent university or affluent high school where a lot of people are getting things taken care of for them and stuff, but then their home life, they're dealing with like a lot of pressures, a lot of violence, stuff like that going on. And so I think this definitely borrows from that same idea.
Well, Bel Air was actually one of my comparisons as well, but the Bel Air's 1,000 times worse than I think this series is.
Well, it starts off with a basketball game, right?
So did Swagger. Swagger I had here Friday Night Lights. I was glad that the main story focused on baseball because it was actually genuinely interesting to watch. I think that this episode was probably a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
I did read some conversation online that said that the 6th season of All-American wasn't that good, and that this season, even though with the lackluster budget, and the fact that less than 500,000 people have tuned into any episode of this. They've never had, even I think the pilot was their highest viewed episode, and it only brought in like 480,000 people. So I'm not going to say the CW has no reason to cancel it, but it does feel like they've also like cornered it into a market. Like I heard Katara, right? Or Korra, Legend of Korra, right?
Legend of Korra, yeah.
Yeah. You know what they did in the 4th season, the last season of that?
Did they release it all online?
All online,
right?
But
yeah.
Only online, like only on the Nickelodeon site.
Because that's where that's where the viewership was coming from
in 2014. But it's also like restricting it, so it feels like this is the same thing. It had a big old hiatus. It finally came back. You're saying the episode was not that bad.
I was surprised at the stakes that the characters are having to deal with. Amara, who is the president, I believe, of the school, is going to be going to the White House. She has a White House gig. She was appointed by someone. That seemed pretty big. Damon's talking about going pro to the MLB. Those are pretty high stakes things to be happening to the characters.
But he doesn't get to the MLB, right?
Well, actually, he is going to, because at the very end of the episode, he's trying to figure out how
Is it that he's going to the MLB or the Dominican Republic?
He's going to the Dominican Republic with the thought, because he's a huge MLB prospect, that after the Dominican Republic, he will pursue his pro baseball career, which at least the show makes it seem like that's 100% going to happen.
I mean, I have heard that baseball players, especially past their prime, will go places like Korea or Japan to play, and then or even the Dominican Republic, but like then hopefully they will do so well there that they could encourage a team to pick them up, because that by that point they don't want to play in the minors anymore. However, if you're young and starting out, I don't know why this guy wouldn't jump into one of the minor leagues and just try to work his way up the
Because what
system.
the answer he gave, that's why he mentioned that he was a sophomore, was that I guess because he was a sophomore in college, he couldn't just jump into the MLB,
Well,
and so that was the reasoning that they gave. So that's the reason why he was leaving to the Dominican Republic to play for one of those teams that you're talking about, in hopes of getting into the actual MLB.
maybe it was off season. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It seemed like almost knowledge that people
It's
that have
certainly
been there
not the
know.
only thing that minor league players can do because they don't get paid very much. So it makes sense if it was off season, maybe he just doesn't have a place for it. It's funny that you may like the show though, because I'm not. What is your ultimate rating for this?
I'm
episode?
going to be giving
Ready
it
or
a
not?
6 out of 10. There's not enough intrigue for me to actually continue watching or even skip through
Do
to
you
figure out
remember?
what happens, but it was a lot better than I thought it was going to
Do you
be.
remember what you gave Found?
Found?
Yes, you didn't like that show.
Oh, I gave that like a 3, I think, out of 10.
Yeah, in the finale of that, it's been renewed. But like, I think that the guy who she was holding in her basement,
Yeah.
the one who had kidnapped her originally, escaped. And was like murdering people again. I think she called him Sir. Same creator. That's why I bring it up.
The weird thing about Found and this series is I have a similar complaint with both, which every single female character, it seemed like, was very sarcastic. You had the main character, Simone, you had Keisha, and then you even had Amara, who's supposed to be the president of the college, and she seemed sarcastic as well. So it did have
They
that
all have
kind of
attitude, yeah.
it had the teen angst vibe to it.
Well, that's what they're appealing to. Jeffrey Maya, I think I saw her Instagram handle was like girl with a boy's name or something like that, which I found funny, but it's spelled Geffri. It's the first time I've ever seen anybody spell it that way. And it's also funny because Damon, the guy who plays him,
Yeah.
his name is Peyton, which can also be a universal, like can be used by a girl too. So yeah.
Well,
Just a casting choice thing, yeah.
But it's genuinely surprising because it's like Damon, he leaves by the end of the episode, and then we go to the front flash.
So she chooses him. They start making out. He's like, I gotta go. That's how it goes.
What happens is the first scene we see with both of them, they're making out, and then they go to the baseball game. Now, because the college is taking out money from all of these sports, it seems like both of their futures are in disarray, including Simone, because, like you said, she does
Pro tennis player. Why
But-
didn't she switch schools if she's really good?
Well, that was even something that Damon was thinking about when he
But
learns
not to
that
the Dominican
baseball.
Republic. Yeah.
So Simone, she gets this major donation from, I guess, Coco Gaffa, or a name like that, Coco Gaff, which I guess has been
It's a
something.
famous-
Yeah. They got a huge donation, and so they're going to be able to continue playing tennis. But with baseball, that even though they won the championship, and that's something that Damon says over and over again, he's not. He decides, okay, I'm going to switch schools. But then when it turns out that one of the coaches, or his main coach, really helps him, Coach Marcus, helps him get one of these jobs in the Dominican Republic, that's what makes him take off at the very end of the episode. So then we cut forward 15 months, and we see that Simone, she's with her friends, and she's going to be starting her junior year, and I'm guessing that's probably where the series is going to pick up, almost like The Bear this season. It started off with almost a complete backstory episode, and that's kind of what this is, because we get the cliffhanger resolved from season 2, but it seems like they're just almost going to be cutting Damon out of the story.
As far as just plot points, doesn't it say? It says Lando integrates more into the friend group, attending family dinners.
So Lando was at the dinner then. I didn't even recognize that he was.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, he's not in the series a lot. There's the character JR. It's really focusing between the relationship between JR and Damon.
Yeah, it says JR struggles with his life post KEK and recovery from aplastic anemia.
Yeah, he got bone marrow from Keisha, and apparently that impacted her more than he thought that would. And also, Amara and Coach Turner, they had a thing going on. Those were both side storylines. I didn't think that they were as interesting as Damon's actual future was going to be. So that's probably something that negates the show a little bit. But yeah, like I said, 6 out of 10, because surprisingly enough, I was really interested and intrigued as to what was actually going to happen. Have they given away anything that's actually going to happen later on in the series, or any type
Not
of...
that I would talk about here, but like I will give you $10 if you can tell me the guest star football player to appear on. I don't know if it's All American Homecoming or All American, but they have had one. $10 if you can name it.
Emmitt Smith?
It was a running back, but it wasn't Emmitt Smith.
Reggie Bush?
Fuck. Yeah. Yeah, it was Reggie Bush. Reggie
Reggie,
Bush.
but do you know even what season? Because I believe Damon, isn't he in All American? It was like a backdoor
Yeah.
pilot that they did for the series,
Well,
right?
yeah, but Damon isn't the main character of All American. That would be, let me see here, Daniel Ezra playing Spencer James,
Well, I
right?
think what I'm
And
saying is,
Simone, I think, didn't appear in All American until like season 2, from what I read.
and then they decided to give her a full show.
Yeah, but I mean, like, again, the All American went several more seasons than that. I'm looking up the Reggie Bush fact. I think it may have been All American Homecoming where Reggie Bush showed up. Reggie Bush, yes, he did. He played himself in season 2. So even though it was a tennis based thing for her, he was still there.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's
it's
cool.
also again, it's also only baseball here, so I guess that they really were just trying to bring in the football crowd as well. Maybe
Reggie
just kind of
Bush
everything.
is 39 years old, and he didn't technically retire. No, he did in 2017. So any team that wants to go get him can go do that. So yeah, let me see how many episodes. 3 episodes right now. I know the titles of. This was Ready or Not. Level Up is next. Right My Wrongs. The show creator, Nkechi Okoro Carroll, the one who created Found, also wrote this episode. And
I wanted to talk about actually someone that shows up. It makes way more sense that they were probably put to recurring because Thea, she's a character in the series. I didn't know that until she shows up literally for 1 minute. But I think that she's supposed to be a bigger person, at least in
friends
the
rally to
first.
support her, particularly Thea, who is aiming for the pro circuit. So is she also a tennis player?
I guess so. She only shows up for a minute, but when I was looking up the cast for this just to get some names, she was one of the first that popped up. But she only shows up here for like 30 seconds.
Any point of like bringing her up though? Like, is there any specific quality about her that
No,
endeared you to the show? Okay, I do want to bring it back because I feel like the story, as much as the plot is interesting, it's more like crazy to me how a show can be renewed. Usually it's almost like an ultimatum that the network comes out and it's like, yeah, we'll renew you, but we'll give you this really, really insignificant, or like, it's insane that the cast would agree, and so would the director or the creator and everybody else to just come back on board to give the fans what they want. So give them credit for that. But it did make me wonder, like, in history, what was the biggest budget cut in the last season? For any
yeah.
TV show. And it's really, really hard because most shows only talk about their budget if they're huge, if they're like insanely high budgets.
Usually it would be if the series has had a less amount of episodes than the other seasons leading up to it.
Maybe nowadays, but back in the day, it was a little bit different. For instance, they talked about Banshee, and apparently in the last season, there was a big dip in quality. Some of the special effects, like whenever they would show a fire, they changed. What? Because you watched that.
When you say fire, it brings me back to the flamethrower scene in episode 4 of season 4. Yeah, no, I think Banshee had like 8 episodes, and then the first 3 seasons had 10 episodes in each.
Altered Carbon was another one they talked about.
For season 2,
was not as good. Chuck, they said that they limited the cast significantly.
With Chuck, it makes sense because again, I'm going back to the episodes, but the last season was 13 episodes, and all the other ones were like 20, aside from the first season. But that was because of the writer's strike.
Bob Hart's Abishola apparently cut most of the surrounding characters who were regulars to supporting cast, just like this show did.
Did that show end?
Well, yeah, a long time ago.
I didn't know that.
But I thought it did. Yeah, no, it must have, because this is all for last season stuff. But the biggest show was people talking about like 1980s Airwolf, which I hadn't heard of before. Airwolf, which was a show that was, it centered around, I think, this helicopter and this team that would go fight like secretly the Cold War. Kind of like, what was that Arnold Schwarzenegger thing that you watched? Fubar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was like a team of elite ops, an A team of sorts that would go off and fight in this helicopter and then come back and do these missions, right? Season 4 comes along, and because of the tight budget, what they ended up doing was they, in the first episode, kill off the entire principal cast, replace them, and then they couldn't afford the helicopter, so they just relied on stock footage for the entire season. So it was a different cast, a helicopter, and like probably like some terrible writing. But yeah, that's the most infamous version of this entire thing.
I did want to bring up, and I even looked this up because I couldn't get an actual fact on it. There was one thing that was too unbelievable in this episode. I was left scratching my head. So Amara, she's appointed to the White House gig, right, at the very end of the episode. But she says that she's still going to be the president of the college. She's going to be doing both like simultaneously, which I don't think that if you're appointed to the White House with a White House gig, you don't have a side job like ever. At least that's not why. And I tried to look it up, but Google really wasn't helping me that much.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of people try to do side gigs.
Even at the White House.
I know what's his face, Kumar from Harold and Kumar, quit being an actor to go be like press secretary or something for Obama. But with that exception, I do think that, yeah, I'm not super surprised if someone was trying to sling that. The last fact I'll throw your way is that Taye Diggs played the coach in the does play the coach in All American.
Yeah.
And he, the Spencer Pasinger guy, his coach would call him. It might even be his dad would call him and say, "This is what Taye Diggs is doing right or wrong." As a coach,
so to give him notes.
Yeah, as if Spencer Pasinger, like he was a producer, but he was a consulting producer. So it's not like he had much say. He did say that the pilot was like pretty accurate up to the conversations that he would have, but like as the series went on, it's very dramatic.
I mean, it was a soap opera. Literally, yes. I had to watch an episode of the original All American when we were learning about soap operas in one of my college classes. This was like back 3 years ago or so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just thinking about like the overall. So she doesn't end up with Damon, and it seems like it might have been a send off for him. He might have been at the end.
There's also the chance that because he's the people that they want to see together get the most. Well, he's one of the people that they want to see get together the most. That he comes back at the finale or something like that.
Yeah,
but
maybe
I don't know.
I think people are pretty happy with Lando. Like it just seemed like he was a very popular dude. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.